Whenever we pop a pill, we usually just hope for the best and go about our day. But think, just for a second, about the sheer, mind-boggling scale of the journey that tiny active molecule is about to go on. It's not just swallowing and magically feeling better. That microscopic chemical has to navigate a complete labyrinth of hidden biological barriers. It's got to survive highly acidic environments, breach these tightly guarded cellular fortress walls, and then, eventually, locate a specific microscopic worker inside your cells just to do its job. It is a literal biological odyssey.
Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to track this exact epic journey. We'll be looking at the precise science of how a molecule goes from penetrating those cellular fortress walls to ultimately interacting with the cell's microscopic workforce. We are going to explore the fascinating physics of membrane permeability and then transition right into the rapid-fire world of enzyme kinetics.
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the cellular fortress, then look at modeling the gut barrier, tackle the blood-brain barrier, explore the speed of biology, dive into modulating enzymes, and wrap up with future therapeutics. Okay, let's dive right into this.
Section 1. The cellular fortress. Understanding the walls of the cell.
So our molecule's absolute first hurdle is just getting inside. You really have to think of human cells not as these welcoming open houses, but as highly secure, selectively permeable fortresses. The walls of these fortresses are specifically designed to keep the bad stuff out while allowing the essential nutrients in. And this brings us to a fundamental concept: membrane permeability. That's the rate of passive diffusion of molecules across the membrane. Essentially, it's just the ease with which molecules pass this barrier. Whether our molecule gets in or not depends heavily on physical factors. Is the molecule large? Is it small? Does it carry an electrical charge? The cell membrane is incredibly picky, and generally speaking, permeability drops for larger molecules or those carrying a charge. Plus, the membrane's own fluidity, how viscous or flexible it is, also dictates how easily things can just slide right through.
Section 2. Modeling the gut barrier, the intestinal checkpoint.
Before a pharmaceutical drug can ever reach your bloodstream to do its job, it usually has to survive a massive checkpoint, the human gut. To test this, researchers heavily rely on a standardized method called the DBALM Protocol 142. Imagine a truly cinematic experiment led by our hypothetical expert, Dr. Chem. Using a transwell system, Dr. Chem takes human CACO2 cells and grows them on a permeable filter, literally recreating your intestinal wall right there in a plastic dish. The top part, the apical side, represents the intestinal lumen where that digested pill is sitting. The bottom part, the basolateral side, represents your blood. Dr. Chem can then drop a molecule on top and measure exactly how much of it actually makes it through the fortress walls to the bottom.
But Dr. Chem's experiment? It is an absolute endurance test. To calculate the apparent permeability coefficient, or PAP, the cells cultivate for up to 29 days just to ensure that barrier is perfectly, immaculately tight. They deploy radioactive carbon-14 mannitol as a marker to prove the walls aren't leaking. They also have to rigorously ensure the drug being tested isn't just destroying the cells outright. And for the cinematic climax of this experiment, during the test, Dr. Chem must physically shake the plate at 500 revolutions per minute. Why? Because otherwise, a microscopic stagnant puddle called the unstirred water layer forms right on the cells. That puddle would block the drug and completely ruin the data.
Section 3. The blood-brain barrier, the ultimate vault.
If the gut is a fortress, the central nervous system is the ultimate vault. It uses specialized brain microvascular endothelial cells to rigidly protect our brains from toxins circulating in the blood. Just how tight is this blood-brain barrier? Well, consider the data comparing two simple sugar molecules, mannitol and sucrose. Mannitol is a smaller, uncharged molecule. Sucrose is nearly twice its size. In strict lab tests, mannitol showed a permeability of 4.99 times 10 to the negative 7 centimeters per second. Sucrose was significantly lower than that. And when we scale up to in vivo tests, meaning actual living organisms, mannitol's permeability was more than double that of sucrose. Size and charge absolutely unequivocally dictate access to the brain.
And this brilliantly illustrates why these lab models are so incredibly crucial for us. There is a near-perfect correlation between the in vitro lab tests and the in vivo living models. Using highly sensitive mass spectrometry, researchers prove that these cell models perfectly predict the actual biological uptake in living organisms. The strict rules of permeability apply exactly the same way in a plastic dish as they do right inside your head.
However, even the toughest fortress can be breached. When disease or severe inflammation hits the body, it releases cytokines like interleukin-1 beta. When researchers introduced this cytokine to the barrier, the permeability of both our markers spiked drastically, and the electrical resistance of the cellular wall completely plummeted. Inflammation essentially blows the gates of the blood-brain barrier wide open, which is actually a major factor in a lot of neurological diseases.
Section 4. The speed of biology. Introducing enzyme kinetics.
Okay, so safely inside the cell, our molecule has to actually get to work. This is where we get into enzyme kinetics, the quantitative study of how fast molecules interact with the cell's metabolic workers. To understand this speed, biochemists rely on the Michaelis-Menten model, which revolves around two vital mathematical parameters. First up is Vmax, or maximum velocity. Think of an enzyme like a manufacturing factory. Vmax is the absolute theoretical maximum rate of production when every single machine in that factory is running at full capacity. The enzyme is completely saturated. The second parameter is Km, the Michaelis constant. This measures how efficiently that factory runs when raw materials are scarce. Specifically, it's the concentration of molecules you need to reach exactly half of the factory's maximum speed.
Let's see how this builds into an actual biological assembly line. The Michaelis-Menten model breaks this down into a two-step catalytic process. Step 1. The enzyme and our molecule, which we call the substrate, find each other and rapidly bind together to form a complex. Step 2. The actual catalysis happens, breaking that complex down into a brand new product. Now, step 2 is the slower of the two, meaning it creates a critical bottleneck. It is the definitive rate-limiting step of this entire biological reaction.
But I should clarify, when we say slower, we are speaking relatively. Some enzymes are unbelievably fast. In fact, enzymes like catalase have evolved to operate so rapidly they have hit what scientists call catalytic perfection. They are so perfectly optimized that the only thing slowing them down is the physical rate of diffusion. Literally, the only limit to their speed is how fast the molecules can physically swim through the water in the cell to bump into them. It is the absolute physical speed limit of biology. No way around it.
Section 5. Modulating enzyme activity, throwing a wrench in the gears.
So we have these incredibly fast, hyper-efficient molecular factories inside us. But what if a factory is producing something harmful, or reproducing a virus? Well, we throw a microscopic wrench into the gears using inhibitors. Competitive inhibitors look exactly like the normal substrate, and they physically compete for the enzyme's active site. Because they compete, you need way more substrate to get the same work done, meaning the apparent Km increases. But the factory's top speed, Vmax, remains unchanged if you just flood it with enough substrate. Uncompetitive inhibitors, on the other hand, they bind to the complex after the substrate is already attached. This effectively traps the enzyme, taking machines right off the factory floor, which actively decreases both the Vmax and the Km.
This is where it gets really real. Let's look at a fascinating and highly urgent medical application: methanol poisoning. Methanol itself isn't actually what kills you. It's that an enzyme in your liver, alcohol dehydrogenase, turns that methanol into highly toxic formaldehyde. So how do doctors stop this? They administer a massive, rapid dose of ethanol intravenously. The ethanol acts as a competitive inhibitor. It fights the methanol for the enzyme's active site, keeping the enzyme so completely busy processing the regular alcohol that the methanol just passes through the body without ever being turned into poison. It's brilliant.
And then there's the ultimate weapon: irreversible suicide inactivators. Take the drug DFMO, which is used to treat African sleeping sickness caused by parasites. DFMO acts as a literal biochemical Trojan horse. The parasite's enzyme grabs the DFMO drug, totally thinking it's a normal molecule it needs to divide and survive. But during the catalytic process, the drug reacts, covalently bonds to the enzyme, and destroys it permanently from the inside out. The parasite tricks itself into destroying its own machinery.
Section 6. The future of therapeutics, mastering the microscopic.
And that brings our molecule's journey to a close. From breaching those fortress walls via membrane permeability, all the way to interacting with lightning-fast factories dictated by enzyme kinetics, these are the twin pillars of modern drug design. Getting a molecule exactly where it needs to be and having it modulate the exact target once it arrives. As our mastery over these biological barriers grows, it leaves us with a truly fascinating question to ponder. If we can eventually engineer molecules to perfectly cross any biological barrier in the human body and perfectly modulate any enzyme's activity with absolute precision, what disease could possibly remain incurable? Thanks for joining me for this explainer.
Keep wondering and keep exploring.